I need you to do something for me right now. Raise your hand if you've ever said to yourself, I'll make dua later. Keep it up. Now keep your hand up if later never actually came. Yeah, that's what I thought. Here's the thing. Nobody's telling you you're not lazy. You're not unmotivated. You're not even that busy. You're scared. And your brain has gotten really, really good at disguising that fear as not the right time. You know what happens in the 5 seconds between thinking I should make dua? Because here's what I know about the human brain. Hesitation is the kiss of death. The moment you hesitate, your brain kicks into protection mode. It starts giving you reasons. Maybe later. I'm not ready. Let me clean up first. I don't know what to say. And just like that, the moment's gone. But when you act within 5 seconds, you beat your brain to the punch. You move before fear can stop you. You raise your hands before doubt can paralyze you. You speak before perfectionism can silence you. Can I tell you what's really stopping most of you? You think your dua needs to be eloquent. You think you need to know the Arabic. You think you need to be in a state of complete purity and spiritual enlightenment. That's nonsense. Allah doesn't need your fancy words. He wants your real heart. He wants you, messy, broken, struggling, imperfect you, to show up and talk to him. You know what your dua can be? Ya Allah, I'm lost, help me. That's it, 4 words. And it's powerful because it's real. Your dua can be you crying in your car during lunch break. It can be you whispering at 3 a.m. when you can't sleep. It can be you standing in the shower, water running, tears falling, just saying, please, I need you. That's not just valid, that's beautiful, because you showed up. You didn't wait to be perfect. You came as you are. Now, let me be crystal clear about something. I'm not standing here telling you that dua is some cosmic vending machine. You don't insert prayer and get instant results. That's not how this works. And you know it. But here's what does happen. And here's what nobody tells you about dua. The real transformation isn't always in what you get. It's in who you become. When you consistently make dua, you're no longer the person who sits around hoping things magically improve. You become someone who acts, someone who reaches out, someone who believes they're worthy of asking for help. You shift from victim to participant, from passive to active, from powerless to powerful. And that shift, that changes everything, because when you start showing up for yourself spiritually, you start showing up for yourself in every other way too. You start taking the job interview, making the phone call, having the difficult conversation, taking the first step. Look, here's what happens in your brain when you have the impulse to make dua. You feel it, right? That moment where something inside you says, I need to pray about this, or I should ask Allah for help right now. But then what do? You pause, you think, you tell yourself you'll do it in a minute after you finish this task, when you have more time, when you're in a better state. And in that pause, in those few seconds of hesitation, your brain hijacks the entire moment. It starts building a case against action. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain designed to keep you safe and comfortable, kicks into overdrive with objections and complications. Suddenly you're thinking about how you haven't prayed properly in days, or how you don't know the right words, or how you're not clean enough, or how you should wait until you're home, or how you're too distracted right now. The impulse that felt so urgent 5 seconds ago now feels manageable to postpone. This is where the 5-second countdown becomes absolutely critical. When you feel that urge to make dua, you interrupt the hesitation pattern by counting backwards from 5. The countdown does something powerful in your neurology. It shifts your focus from your feelings and fears to a simple task, counting. It creates a pattern interrupt. Your brain can't simultaneously count backwards and build elaborate excuses. And when you hit one, you move. You physically raise your hands. You open your mouth. You begin speaking to Allah before your mind can construct another barrier. This isn't about being impulsive or thoughtless. It's about recognizing that spiritual momentum is real and hesitation kills it dead. Every second you wait is another second for fear to calcify, for doubt to take root, for procrastination to win. The counting creates urgency without anxiety. It transforms a vague intention into immediate action. The reason this matters so desperately is because consistency in dua doesn't come from feeling motivated or spiritually elevated. It comes from developing the habit of acting faster than your fear. Most people wait for the perfect emotional state that never arrives. They wait to feel worthy, ready, or inspired. But connection with Allah isn't built on perfect moments. It's built on showing up repeatedly, especially when it's uncomfortable, especially when you don't feel like it, especially when your brain is screaming at you to wait. The 5-second rule trains you to become someone who acts on faith immediately rather than someone who endlessly contemplates it. Most people treat dua like it's the spiritual equivalent of a spare tire, something you keep in the trunk for emergencies, something you pull out only when everything else has failed, when you've exhausted every other option, when you're absolutely desperate and there's nowhere else to turn. They go through their entire day making decisions, solving problems, stressing about outcomes, and dua never even enters the equation until disaster strikes. Then suddenly, when the medical diagnosis comes, or the money runs out, or the relationship falls apart, they remember this tool exists. But by then, they're approaching it from a place of panic and desperation. The power of dua multiplies exponentially. When you stop treating it like a formality you're checking off and start wielding it like the lifeline it actually is. When you're stuck in anxiety, your brain is running loops. The same worries cycling endlessly, the same fears playing on repeat, the same what-if spiraling deeper and deeper into your consciousness. You're thinking about the problem from every angle, catastrophizing outcomes, imagining worst-case scenarios. And your body is responding to all of it. Your heart races, your chest tightens, your breathing gets shallow. You feel paralyzed, frozen in this mental prison of your own thoughts. And here's the trap. Thinking about your anxiety doesn't solve your anxiety. Worrying about your problems doesn't fix your problems. You can spend hours, days, weeks in your head analyzing and agonizing, and the only thing that grows is the anxiety itself. This is where most people get stuck, believing that if they just think hard enough or worry thoroughly enough, somehow a solution will emerge. But anxiety feeds on inaction. It thrives when you're passive. It grows stronger every moment you sit there letting it run the show. Making dua is a physical interruption of that cycle. When you stop what you're doing, raise your hands, and begin speaking to Allah, something shifts in your neurology. You're no longer just a passive victim of your thoughts. You've taken action. Your body moves, your voice activates, your focus redirects from the endless internal spiral to an external connection. This matters more than most people realize because action, any action, sends a signal to your brain that you're not helpless. Even if nothing external changes in that moment, you've changed your relationship to the problem. You've moved from rumination to engagement, from passive suffering to active participation. The act itself breaks the trance of anxiety. There's actual science behind this. When you're anxious, your amygdala is firing, flooding your system with stress hormones, keeping you in fight or flight mode. But when you engage in a purposeful action like dua, especially one that involves physical movement and intentional focus, you activate different neural pathways. You engage your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain. You shift from reactive to responsive. The physical act of raising your hands, the conscious act of forming words, the deliberate act of directing your attention toward Allah rather than your fears. All of this creates neurological change. You're not just hoping the anxiety will pass. You're actively doing something that interrupts the pattern, and that interruption is where relief begins. Dua isn't passive wishing. It's the action that pulls you out of the quicksand of helplessness. You're never going to wake up one morning feeling spiritually qualified enough to make dua. That moment where you feel pure, worthy, deserving, and ready, it's not coming. You know what you're actually waiting for? Permission from yourself. Permission you'll never grant because there's always something else you need to fix first. You need to pray all 5 prayers consistently. You need to stop that one sin you keep committing. You need to read more Quran. You need to be less angry, less broken, less of a mess. You've created this impossible checklist in your mind, and until you complete it, you've decided you're not worthy of approaching Allah. So you wait. And while you wait, you're carrying all your burdens alone, drowning in problems you won't ask for help with because you've convinced yourself you haven't earned the right to ask. This is fear disguised as humility. It feels like respect for Allah, like you're being appropriately reverent by not approaching Him in your current state. But what it actually is you buying into the lie that Allah's mercy is conditional on your perfection, that His door only opens for people who have their lives together, that you need to be worthy. before you can ask for help becoming worthy. It's circular logic that keeps you trapped. The truth you need to hear is this. Allah already knows exactly who you are. He knows every sin you've committed, every prayer you've missed, every intention you've failed to follow through on. He knows you're struggling. He knows you're imperfect, and he's still inviting you to call on him, not after you fix yourself, not when you're better. Right now, exactly as you're waiting for worthiness is just perfectionism blocking your access to the help you desperately need. It's your ego telling you that you have to present a certain version of yourself before you can show up. But dua isn't a performance. It's not about impressing Allah with how put together you are. It's about coming to him with your brokenness and asking for help. The mess is the point. The struggle is the reason. You don't make dua because you're worthy. You make dua because you're human and you need him. Every single day you wait for that feeling of readiness is another day you're refusing the help that's already available. Stop waiting for permission that will never come and start showing up messy, imperfect, and real. The biggest lie you've bought into is that spiritual connection requires massive time investment. You think if you can't dedicate 30 minutes or an hour to deep, focused prayer, then what's the point of doing anything at all? So you wait for the day when your schedule clears up, when you have more time, when life slows down enough to really do it properly. And that day never comes because life doesn't work that way. Your schedule isn't going to magically open up. You're not suddenly going to have hours of free time. What happens instead is you end up doing nothing at all because you've made the barrier to entry so high that you can't clear it. You've turned dua into this big production that requires perfect conditions. And since perfect conditions don't exist, you stay disconnected. Here's what you need to understand about how your brain actually works. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, doesn't happen through occasional intense experiences. It happens through repetition. Every time you make dua, even if it's just 30 seconds while you're sitting in traffic or standing in line or lying in bed before sleep, you're creating and strengthening neural pathways. You're training your brain to default to hope instead of despair. You're building automatic patterns where your first response to stress becomes turning to Allah rather than spiraling into anxiety. This doesn't happen from one powerful hour-long session once a month. It happens from showing up consistently, even in tiny increments, until the pattern becomes automatic. Think about it like physical exercise. 30 seconds of movement every single day will create more lasting change in your body than an intense 2-hour workout you do once and never repeat. The consistency is what compounds. The repetition is what rewires. When you make dua every day, even briefly, you're not just asking for things. You're fundamentally changing your brain's architecture. You're creating grooves that make it easier to access that connection the next time. You're building spiritual muscle memory. Over weeks and months, those 30-second moments add up to a completely different internal landscape. Your default mode shifts. Your automatic responses change. You become someone who naturally reaches for dua instead of someone who has to force themselves into it. Stop holding out for the perfect lengthy session and start stacking small moments. 30 seconds when you wake up, 30 seconds before a difficult meeting, 30 seconds when anxiety hits. These aren't lesser versions of real dua. They're the building blocks of lasting transformation because they're sustainable and they're creating the neurological foundation for genuine, lasting connection. Most people approach dua thinking the entire point is to get what they're asking for. They want the job, the healing, the money, the relationship, the solution to whatever problem is crushing them right now. And when they don't see immediate results or when things don't unfold exactly how they imagined, they feel like dua didn't work. They feel disappointed, maybe even a little betrayed, like they held up their end of the bargain but nothing changed. But this perspective completely misses what's actually happening when you consistently make dua. Yes, you're asking for things. Yes, Allah responds in ways you may or may not recognize. But the most profound transformation isn't happening outside of you and your circumstances. It's happening inside of you, in your character. Every single time you make dua, you're making a choice about your identity. You're choosing to be someone who asks for help instead of someone who pretends they don't need it. You're choosing vulnerability over the false armor of self-sufficiency. You're choosing to admit you don't have all the answers, you can't control everything, and you need guidance beyond yourself. These aren't small choices. They're identity-level decisions about who you are and how you move through the world. When you consistently show up in dua, even when you're tired, even when you're doubtful, even when you don't see results, you're proving something crucial to yourself. You're proving you're someone who persists, someone who maintains hope when hope feels foolish, someone who keeps showing up even when the evidence suggests it doesn't matter. This internal shift changes everything about how you operate. When you become someone who regularly brings their problems to Allah, you stop operating from a victim mentality. You're no longer someone life happens to. You're someone actively engaged in partnership with the divine about your life's direction. That fundamental shift in self-concept ripples out into every decision you make. You start taking different actions because you're a different person. You show up differently in conversations. You approach challenges differently. You process setbacks differently. The person who makes consistent dua develops resilience, humility, patience, and trust that the person who doesn't simply can't access. Your dua is shaping you into someone capable of handling whatever answer comes, whether it's yes, not yet, or I have something better planned. The asking changes the asker, and sometimes that transformation is the entire point. Listen, we've covered a lot here, but I want you to walk away with one thing burned into your mind. You already have everything you need. The power isn't out there somewhere waiting to be discovered. It's not locked behind some spiritual level you haven't reached yet. It's in your hands right now. Dua isn't something you need to earn, prepare for, or perfect. It's something you need to use. Stop waiting for the right moment. Stop negotiating with yourself. Stop hiding behind the excuse that you're not good enough yet. You're never going to be perfect, and that's exactly why dua exists. It's for the broken, the struggling, the confused, the scared. It's for you right now, exactly as you are. Every single thing we've talked about today comes down to one decision. Are you going to keep living like you're alone in this? Or are you going to activate the most powerful connection available to you? Are you going to keep treating dua like an accessory, or are you going to make it your primary weapon? Because here's what I know. Your life will change the moment you decide to change how you show up. Not someday. Not when conditions are perfect. Today. This moment. The next time that urge hits you, the next time you feel that pull to raise your hands, you're going